Okay. All right. So before we start, again, like I always do, we're going to see how you withstood the reading. How did you do in the reading? How was the experience, right? We're going to take our usual poll, 1 to 10. 10, it was ecstatic. 1 is you want to, kill yourself. Any 10s for Plato? Let me see your hands. Turn on your faces, the rest of you. No 10s. Okay, 9. Oh, 1 10. Aguirre, thank you. Any 9s for Plato? 9. Okay, Khan, very good. Kanai, excellent. 8, 7. All right, 6. Now we're coming to the territory of the haters. 5. Okay, Pistones. 4, 3, 2, 1. Oh. Hakimian and Tessier. Okay, let's start with the haters. What happened? Hakimian, Tessier Miller.
No, I wasn't hating. It was my camera was acting. I wanted to give them like a 6, 7.
Okay. So never mind. Hakimian, you're on your own.
Yeah, I didn't like it. Mostly because of the premise of the whole like lover boyfriend thing, which I thought was like absolutely repulsive, and I can't believe that like that was a thing. And like Plato seems to be endorsing it to some extent also, like he's not condemning it. I don't know, it's just like really disgusting.
Oh no, okay. So bear in mind, right? This is, I mean, some of us might be tempted to think this is pedophilia. It's not, right? These are adults, all of them. The young men are 18, 19, right? So it's not like they're going to 12-year-olds, right? So at least we know, right? At least according to our standards, we do have something which is more or less normal. It's not yet a crime, right? What they're doing. These are the young men they're engaging with are adults, right? But nevertheless, if you're not into that kind of thing, it might seem difficult, absolutely. It's very different from the Song of Songs. So if you enjoyed the Song of Songs, this is the opposite spectrum, right? Absolutely. Okay, very good, Hakim. Does that help a little bit to know that it wasn't criminal behavior, at least, Hakimian?
I mean, yeah, I guess, but it's just like gross.
Okay. No salvaging Plato. Now, by the way, Plato, remember, he's the table, right? He's just inviting everybody at the table. He's not, Plato never speaks in his dialogues, right? He's simply creating the space where the dialogue can take place. Socrates is the one who normally represents Plato. And remember that Socrates, although he is, he does, that Socrates does not buy into this paradigm, right? At least in terms of bartering, right? He doesn't buy into the idea that there can be an exchange or a barter for his wisdom, right? Since he rejects Alcibiades. Now, we don't know what he did in his personal life, but for sure, we know that he didn't adhere to this kind of custom, right? Of exchanging sex for wisdom. So at least we know that. Okay, let's see. Any other haters? Let's just finish off the haters. Anybody else want to express? Who's speaking?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
Hey, you need something?
Oh no, there's not speaking to me. Okay, Lo, you have your hand up.
Oh.
Yeah, I just wanted to like, I guess, ask a question. Like, is it really possible to attain like wisdom from a person? Like, wisdom is truly like attained by like toiling or like with like a concept that's hard or difficult and really like, or through experience. Like, can you really just get wisdom just by like being with someone or just? That's my question.
Okay, good. Let me mute everybody really quick because I'm hearing somebody else. Okay. Yes, let me respond to your question. So yeah, in this context, it seems, right, that in the cultural context that you can attain wisdom from an older, experienced person, right? But Plato actually doesn't adhere to that, right? For Plato, wisdom is in it. Right, we all have it. Our souls, we're all in the land of forms, right? We all come from that dimension. We all carry this wisdom within us. And I didn't mention this in the introduction. I should have, I realize now, that Socrates saw himself kind of as a midwife, helping every human being give birth to the wisdom that is within them. Right? So in Plato, you don't have the notion that you can learn from someone. You only have the notion that someone can help you give birth to your own wisdom, right? But no one can teach you. You already know. but sometimes you know you need someone to facilitate the birthing of what you already know, right? So yes, you actually, that's a good point. Lo, does that help a little bit, Lo, what I just told you?
Yeah, thank you.
Very good. All right, let's go to the lovers. I have forgotten now who the lovers were. Let me see. Khan. Okay, go ahead, Khan. Speak.
I do see the creepy aspect, but it's like to some extent, every philosopher, even like every older literature, like well-known individual has their own weird aspects to it. But I did like the book in terms of the text that was being given, the information that was being provided. I did like the idea that everybody was sitting down together to provide their own definitions of what they think love is. So I did have a strong appreciation for that. I did not understand everything that was being said by each person, but I tried my best to interpret it to the best that I could.
Okay, very good. So you like the kind of table, the discussion, the multiple viewpoints, which is really a hallmark of Platonic writing, right? Ziegel, would you like to add?
Yeah. I wasn't like a 10, like I didn't like love it too much, but I thought it was very nice to read the different how do you call it? Like people's different opinions about love, and like I think it was 7 people talking about it, and so it's like there's a lot to learn from those 7 people. And I also think that the English was a lot easier to read than last time, because last time I think it was like it was Old Hebrew translated into Old English, and this seemed like pretty straightforward, so it was nice it was more understandable.
Okay, very good, very good. Yes. Yeah, one thing that we have to learn in this class, right, that we're gonna have to acquire this talent is, remember, this is a study abroad. So you're going to be confronted with cultures, with worldviews, with customs that don't connect with you, right? And that sometimes feel downright, repulsive, right? So the challenge is to still be able to learn something from that person, right? And this is only the beginning. We will go through a lot of different cultures and ways of writing and worldview. So this is the challenge of the class, right? Even though there is an aspect of the writing or of the culture that's a turnoff, right? Can you still sit and learn from that person, right? Can you still gather some type of wisdom for yourself? You don't have to become exactly what they're saying, but can you still learn something from that person, right? This is one of the challenges of the class, right? Okay, good. So let's get into the text. I'm going to, the outline is going to be like this. I'm gonna have two sections today. The first one I've entitled The Return to the Self. And here we'll be doing 3 speeches. We'll be doing Pausanias. That's the first hour. Then we'll be doing Aristophanes. And finally, Agathon. And in the second part of the class, in the second hour, we'll be talking about the quest for the other. And here we'll be doing simply Diotima. Okay, that's the plan. Okay, so as I get into these 3 first speeches, right? The Pausanias, Aristophanes, Agathon, I want you to listen carefully for the common denominator, right? In other words, they all sound very different, but when you really listen to them together, they're actually saying something very similar. They have a similar premise. They have a similar view, perspective on love, right? So I want you to listen carefully. I'm going to ask you at the end of the first hour, what's the common denominator? What's the guiding thread? What do these 3 philosophers have in common, right? So take care to try to figure that out as we're going through these 3 philosophers. They all have something in common. They all have a similar approach to love. And I want you to figure out what it is. Okay, so let's start with Pausanias. A lot of you didn't like Pausanias. I was reading your reading assignments. You found him to be sexist and misogynistic, and he is, right? But let's see if we can still learn something from Pausanias, right? So first of all, let's summarize, right? Pausanias talks about 2 different loves. Can anyone tell me what they are? We are on page 13.
Xenius is the one with Aphrodite, the two different Aphrodites.
Yes, tell me what they are. Go ahead.
So pretty much there's an Aphrodite that was born only with a father and without a mother. Uranus, I think, was the father.
That's later. That's later. That's with Aristophanes. I was thinking two different types of love, not the two parents of love.
Common love and heavenly.
Yes, yes, that's the one. Okay, very good. You got it. Okay, is that what you were talking about?
Yeah.
Oh, great. Okay, sorry. Yes. Okay, very good. So two kinds of love, right? Higher love, lower love, right? Heavenly love, common love. Okay, so let's start with a lower love, with a common love. When you are in love in a common way, in a low way, who do you tend to fall in love with? Does anybody remember? Who is the object of your love when you're falling in love in a common way? Anybody remember? There's two different people you can fall in love with, and that'll be a common love automatically.
More physical.
Yes, and what type of people do you fall in love with?
People who look good to you, like less intelligent people.
Okay, and these are?
Female? Younger people.
Yes, exactly. Women and boys. Okay, so make sure you write this down, right? The common love is when you fall in love with either a woman or a boy. Okay, so let's analyze why it's so bad to love a woman, right? Why do you think, right? Why do you think Pausanias is saying when you fall in love with a woman, you are way low, you have fallen very low? Why does he say that? Anybody have an idea?
Because you're falling in love for the physical being. You're not falling in love for intelligence, and it's just physical.
Okay, excellent, right? Because remember, right, the women at the time, maybe they were smart, right? Maybe they had an intellect, but they were not educated. So there was not much you could talk about with this woman, right? You would sit with the woman and she would be thinking about the chores, and you want to talk about poetry and literature and science, and she has nothing to say, right? So what are you in love with then? Well, clearly it's not her mind, right? Since the conversation is zero, right? Then clearly you're in love with the body. Now remember, I told you the story of the cave. What does it mean when you're in love of the body? Where are you, according to Plato? Inside the cave or outside the cave?
Facing the back wall of the cave.
Exactly, right? You are, in other words, when you fall in love with a woman, clearly you're not in love with her mind because she hasn't developed her mind. Maybe she's smart, but it's not developed, so it's not inspiring. Her conversation is not very rich, right? So clearly when you love her, it's not her mind, therefore it's her body, which means that you have been cut into the material realm. Your love is a material love, and you are still in the cave, right? And that's why for Pausanias, that's a lower kind of love, because it's a love which keeps you trapped in the cave. It doesn't elevate you. It doesn't inspire you, right, to rise above into the world of forms, because the woman knows nothing of the world of forms, right? Okay, so now, same thing with the young boys, right? Do the young boys have great conversation? They have a lot of knowledge? No, right? It's like a woman. It's like being with a woman if you're with a young boy. They're cute, right? They look cute. They have nice abs, whatever, but no conversation. So again, you're trapped in the cave, right? That's the idea, right? So now we understand a little more what he's saying. So let's read together. So we have, now, before we read, just to go now, the higher love, who do you fall in love with in the higher type of love? What is going to inspire a higher type of love? What kind of partner?
The older people that are more wise and intelligent.
Exactly, right. Pausanias is really doing kind of a commercial for himself, right? He's like, see, if you want higher love, you need to be with a mature man like me, right? So absolutely, right. If you're in love with an older man, then clearly this is going to be a love that will inspire you, that will help you rise above the material. You will be learning things, developing your mind at the contact of this person. So this is taking you beyond the cave, right? So therefore, it's a higher love. Okay. Let's look at the text briefly, get the quotes. Go to page 13. Let me make sure everybody's here. Are you there on page 13? Second paragraph, put your hand if you're there. in the screen. Okay, good. All right, I'm going to read. Common love is, and make sure you underline these quotes, right? Any quotes that I'm reading in class, this is an indication that quote belongs in the exam. Okay, when you take your exam, you might need that quote. Okay, common love is genuinely common and undiscriminating in its effects. This is a kind of love that inferior people feel, right? People who fall for the body, right? They don't have self-control. They don't fall in love with the mind. They're kind of, undeveloped themselves, right? And the people like this are attracted to women as much as boys and to bodies rather than minds. That's the problem, right? It's not so much the woman or the boys, the fact that what do you love other than the body instead of the mind? Whereas the higher love, go to the paragraph after that. Let me not go there. Let me turn the page 14, right? And before I go to page 14, let me summarize, right? So in essence, right, you want to love the mind rather than love the body, and therefore you want to love an older man, right? So we can already see what we can learn from this, right? It's quite basic advice. Basic advice is if you want to rise out of the cave, if you want to really develop yourself as a human being to your full potential, make sure you choose a partner which inspires your mind and not only your body. That's the advice we can get, right, from Pausanias. So let me say it again, right? The piece of advice we can gather from Pausanias, in spite of his being misogynistic and sexist, we can still learn from him that clearly, if we want to rise above the cave, if we want to develop ourselves to the fullest, it is wise to choose a partner who can inspire us not only physically, there's not only good chemistry physically, but there's also good chemistry mentally. They can inspire you mentally. Now, there's another reason why Pausanias says it's important to fall in love with the mind and not just with the body. And it has to do with the lasting character of love. Can anyone tell me what is his argument? It's on page 14. In other words, if you want the love to last, you better fall in love with more than just the body. Why is that? Based on page 14.
Because beauty fades, but the intelligence will always grow and will always last. So if you fall in love with their mind, you'll be in love with them forever.
Okay, excellent, right? In proportion to the way beauty is fading, the mind is blossoming, right? So beauty eventually fades, but the mind, and I like the way you say it, Soleiman, right, is constantly growing and expanding. So you are constantly being challenged and inspired in new ways, right, with this person. So that's why for the love to last, you need to make sure you don't just have a physical connection, but you also have an intellectual connection, right? He says this here on page 14. So go to page 14. Is this page 14? I'm sorry, no. Okay, now I can't find it anymore. Okay, hold on. 16, sorry. Go to page 16 and go to the big paragraph there. And make sure everyone's here. Are you all here on page 16, the top? Put your hand. Okay, great. Okay, so I'm going to read, skipping a few lines, skipping 4 lines. A bad man in this connection. Are you there? A bad man in this connection? Put your hand out if you're there. Just one person? Okay, good. All right. A bad man in this, so he's talking about bad lover, right? Common lover. Bad man in this connection is the lover of the common type who loves the body rather than the mind. And now he elaborates, why is this bad? Because this person will not be constant. In other words, the love will not last because he loves something that is not constant. And then, as Suleiman said, as soon as the bloom of the body fades, which is what attracted him, he flies away and is gone, bringing disgrace on all he said and promised. And then this is the line you underline, right? But the man who loves goodness of character is constant throughout his life since he has become united with something constant, right? So if you want your love to last, unite with something constant. Make sure you're connecting with something that will last and not with something that will not last, right? So, okay, so we learned a couple of things from Pausanias in spite of his terrible view on women. Okay, very good. Any question on Pausanias before we go to Aristophanes?
So I have a question. If he says if you fall in love with a woman, so should no man be in love with a woman? Like, is he gay?
Everybody's gay in this text. You didn't notice?
Oh, okay. But isn't Diotima go female?
Yes, she's the only woman, and we'll talk about her. It's intriguing that she's part of the conversation, right? But no, the culture in Greece, right? let me put it this way. It's not that they're gay, but they're gay friendly. Or for them, the homosexuality is a ritual of initiation into manhood. At least that's how I'm understanding it, right? In other words, you didn't stay gay forever, right? Or you weren't gay, actually. You had this initiation process where you were connected intimately with a man, and then you would step up and marry and have children and so forth, right? But they were kind of practicing both, I think, at the same time.
So they would never actually fall in love with a woman. They would just use her for mating purposes.
Yeah, I think that's basically.
Basically, they were more like bisexual.
Yeah,
Or something
because
like that.
Socrates is married, right? And you see him, right, frolicking with these guys, right? So the culture was kind of maybe bisexual. You're right, not so much gay as bisexual, meaning they would have wives and children, but they would also have connections with these guys, right? So that's kind of very. I mean, we're getting there too. We're getting there too. Okay. Good. Can you hear me, everybody? Okay, because my connection was acting weird. Okay, any other questions on Pausanias? Shall we move to Aristophanes? All right. Aristophanes. Now, Aristophanes is should be the favorite in the story, because he's talking about something that a lot of us have a sense might be true, right? He's talking about the soulmate, right? And this is a very common topic, right? A lot of us believe that, well, there is this other half, right, that completes me, that I just need to find. They're somewhere in the universe, and hopefully I will be led to them, right? So what is the story Aristophanes tells, the myth he tells, which for him explains or the idea of the soulmate? Anybody remember that story?
You look like your soulmate, right?
So yes, but before he goes into those details, what's the myth he tells us? What's the story he tells? He tells a kind of interesting story. Weird, a little bit weird.
Is it that you attract who you are?
Not yet, you're getting ahead of me. What's the funny story he tells? Yes, okay, very good, Bella, right? Originally, we were united with someone else. All of us, right, we were two, right? And we were wandering around with our soulmate, right? And then we became too powerful. And Zeus, the king of the gods, got anxious and worried, and so cut us in two. And so now all of us are wandering around without this second half, right? And we all feel incomplete, and we all feel like something is missing. And this is what we are feeling, is the loss, the original loss of the soulmate. So according to the story, right, which he tells, let me see which page so you can take a look, right? Page 23. So make sure you have this reference, right? This is where he tells the story, page 23. Right? In other words, all of us in a way are sensing something is missing. I don't feel complete until I have found this other human being, right? So a lot of us ascribe, right, to this theory of the soulmate. Now, of course, now this is where Suleiman was going. One of if there is indeed a soulmate, if this myth has an element of truth, then the key question would be, what does this soulmate look like, right? Because if we are looking for a soulmate, if there is indeed a soulmate out there, wouldn't it be nice to know what they look like, so we don't waste time with a bunch of creeps and idiots, right? Wasting years of our lives when the soulmate could be right there and we're missing them, right? So there is actually, so make sure you write down, right? The key question that arises here, if this theory of the soulmate is true, the information we need now is, what does this soulmate look like? And the text is giving us a clue. So I'm going to read. There is an actual description of the soulmate, hidden, subtle, right? So what I'm going to do is read several sections. I'll tell you the pages and you can go back if you want, but I'm going to read several sections, and I want you to listen to the way he's describing the soulmate. There is a kind of a constant idea that comes out. There is the same idea comes out each time, and then when I'm done reading, I want you to tell me, what do you think the soulmate looks like, okay? So I'm starting on page 23. I'm just going to read randomly. You don't need to follow, just listen. And then tell me at the end of, when I'm done with these descriptions, what does the soulmate look like? Okay, so starting, so on page 25, second paragraph, those who are cut from the male gender go for males, while they are boys because they're slices of the male gender, etc. In the middle, it is not out of shamelessness they do this, but because they're bold, brave, masculine, and welcome the same qualities in others. Bottom of the paragraph, they're always welcoming their shared natural characteristic. Skipping to page 27, I'm on the top. If this is the ideal under present circumstances, what comes closest to it must be the best. That is to find a loved one who naturally fits your own character, who is naturally close to us, and who restores us to our original nature. Okay, based on these few fragments, can you have an idea what the soulmate looks like?
Yourself, maybe?
Yes, excellent, right? Absolutely. What we're realizing here is that the soulmate is your perfect reflection of who you are. The soulmate looks like you. And so, in other words, in order to find the soulmate, it's very important that you know who you are, right? That when you know who you are, that's when the soulmate will appear as a reflection of you. So we learned something fundamental here. The path to finding the soulmate is to stop looking until you know deeply who you are. Who am I? What are my core values? What do I believe? What will I never negotiate, right? What is important to me? Once you have established who you are and you are acting like it, right? You will begin to attract your soulmate, right? Questions before I go any further? There's a couple of you ask questions.
Yeah, I have a question. So it is true, and I do believe that the perfect soulmate is one who is very similar to yourself. However, I think like the generations are changing, whereby people are embracing differences because it causes more excitement in their lives. And falling in love with someone who is similar, it's a little bit boring. It's kind of like you're dating yourself.
Okay, very good. So you are already anticipating my criticism of Plato, right? So yes, there is a problem here, which we'll talk about, which Kana is already deciphering, right? Zigal, let's hear from you a little bit.
So I wanted to know, this is a description of yourself, but from the inside, right? Like personality-wise,
Yeah.
not like outside feedback.
No, that wouldn't work, right? So yes, absolutely. So actually, I want to do a little exercise with you. So for those of you still interested in finding your soulmate, this will very much help you, right? I want you to take a piece of paper and I want you to write down, how will I do this? There's several ways of doing this. Yeah, I want you to write down your core values. What are values that you find to be essential, right? I want you to write down 3 core values that define you, that you are, right? 3 things that make up your core, that make up who you are, that you will never budge, that this is never gonna go away, right? And if it goes away, you go away, right? In other words, you're not yourself without these 3 core values. Okay, are you ready? I'm putting you on the gallery view. I want you to write down these 3 core values, 3 things that define you, without which you're not you. Right, so don't tell me that, I don't know, you like to play soccer, right? Because you could not play soccer and still be you, right? So don't give me some inessential things without which you're not you. Okay, ready? I'll give you like 30 seconds. So you can write down these 3 core values. Okay, how many of you are done? Put your hand. Okay, let's hear from a couple of you. Who would like to start? Tell me your 3 core values.
I'll go.
Go ahead.
Family. I'm nothing without my family, and it's very important to be family oriented to me. Physical beauty, and it's very important that the person I would be with would be very into exercise and taking care of themselves and not lazy, wanting to stay young, and I'm a nurturer, so I'm a caretaker. I like to give. I like to make people feel better. So those are things I can't be without.
Okay, so be careful. The exercise is describing you, not describing your
No,
potential.
that's me. For me, like physical, that's what for me, family is everything.
Okay.
Physical health is everything.
All right, very good. Now it sounds better. Okay, very good. Absolutely. So now, it's not enough to write them down. You have to become these things, right? Because until you have become these things, these highest values, which you think you are, often we have values that we think we are, but we're not really, right? Once you have become these things, what the text is saying, you will be able to identify your soul. In other words, your soul, you will be able to attract your soulmate, right? So in many ways, the best way to go out looking for love, according to Plato, according to Aristophanes, right, is not to go out looking for love, is to make yourself to your highest potential. And once you have reached your highest potential, once you are finally at the same level of your values, because often we have values, but we're down here, right? So once you have reached your full potential as a human being, this is when you will attract your soulmate. And anything before that, right? If you're not yourself at the level of your values, you will not attract your soulmate. You will attract different people, which will divert you from yourself, right? Let's try a couple more. Let's see a couple more descriptions of the self. Anybody else want to try?
I want to go.
Go ahead.
Okay, so for me, it's not being stagnant. I do not really care about from where a person's background is or from where they came. If they must have personal growth, and that's very important for me. Second, everyone goes through emotions, but the importance here is communicating in a civilized and respectful way. If someone is going to yell at me and raise their voice and belittle me, then that's a big no. And third is honesty in all situations. I understand situations can be very scary at times, but I believe if a person explains the situation in full honesty, then I'm willing to work around that and deal with the situation no matter how hard it is.
Okay, very good. So in other words, now what Aristophanes would ask you at this point, he would say, are you already yourself, right? Respectful and honest and fluid, like you say, right? He would ask the person who is quoting these values, are you there yet? A lot of us, we have values like we say, I'm loving and I'm this and I'm that, but then are we, right? So he would say, once you have reached to the highest level, these three core values, you will naturally attract your soulmate, right? And the reason, by the way, we attract people who are not our soulmates is because we have not yet reached our own highest potential. Does that make sense? This is very important to realize, right? This is why it's better to date a little bit later than very young, right? Because until you have reached your full potential as a human being, you cannot attract your soulmate. You will attract different unfinished people, right? So the idea is make sure you are at the level of your own values, right? Make sure you have developed yourself to the full potential, and then you will attract someone on your level. So any of us have relationships which are chaotic and the person doesn't seem to be on our level. Actually, we are always attracting exactly who we are. So if you're dealing with a crazy relationship right now, look inside, right? And you will see craziness there, right? If you're dealing with a stable relationship, look inside and you will see stability. That's what Aristophanes is saying. Whoever we choose is actually a reflection of ourselves. And it can be the reflection of our lowest selves if we haven't reached our full potential, or the reflection of our highest selves if we have reached it. And so the advice Aristophanes would say is don't date until you have reached your full potential, because until then you will attract unfinished versions of yourself, chaotic versions of yourself. Am I making sense? Do you see what I'm saying? Right? And so if any of us right now is in a relationship where we're like, what is this mess that, who is this person, this crazy person that I'm with? Look inside. And you will see perfect reflection. We always attract who we are. And that's why we have to make, instead of going out to look for a mate, build yourself, right? That's what Aristophanes would say. Build yourself to the highest level, and then you will naturally attract high-level people. Right? Lopez, I'm sorry, you had your hand up for an hour. Go ahead.
Yes, how are you, Professor? Well, the three things that I had in mind for me, the first one is you have to be very artistic because that goes with me a lot. You have to Ohana, very important for me, my family, big fam. Ohana, family, very big for me, and also a dreamer that
Okay.
really that thinks out and beyond and really strives for his goals.
Very good. Excellent. Right. So again, right, the advice is make sure you're like that completely, right? It shouldn't just be values or ideals. Have you developed those to the highest degree? And once you have, right, you will attract exactly that level. And so if you want to attract high level partners, become a high level partner, right? If you want to attract low level partners, stay where you are. That's the idea, right? Kaikov, you have a hand. Go ahead.
For me, would be family. Me being persistent because I'm not me without going for what I want, and my attitude towards things and towards people, my specific attitude.
Okay, very good. Same thing, right? Become. That's what Aristophanes is saying. Become who you are. And once you have become who you are, which sometimes takes several years, you will attract, right? Your soulmate. Finished. Okay, any questions on Aristophanes? On how to find your soulmate? Everybody clear? Become yourself fully and your soulmate will come, right? Until you're finished, you will only attract half-assed versions of yourselves, right? So, all right, last one, Agathon. See how much time? Oh my god, terrible. Okay. All right, Agathon is on page, where's my book? 29. Okay, now if you noticed Agathon, if you're familiar with Plato, with what I told you in the introduction, if you're familiar with the context of this party, and then you hear Agathon speak, it sounds like he's making terrible mistake as soon as he opens his mouth. Did anybody catch that? How Agathon completely destroyed himself the moment he opened. You know, there's people like that. They're beautiful until they open their mouth, right? Agathon is one of those, right? Did anybody notice how Agathon really killed himself? Anybody see? No, I'm the only one? Yes. Okay, let's try and investigate. Paul, yes, you raise your hand, meaning you saw? Paul is silent. Okay. All right, let's investigate, right? Agira, you have something to add?
I mean, I would like to have someone like is very hard worker and very talkative and listener.
Okay, we've moved on. We've moved on.
Oh, really? Is it because like my camera wasn't working, so I wasn't able to say anything, and then I just joined again.
It's good to say it. It's good to say it. Thank you. All right, we're moving on to Agathon now. I don't want to hear any more perfect soulmates anymore. Okay. Agathon. All right. So first of all, who is Agathon? Is he an older guy or a younger guy? Anybody remember?
Is he younger?
Yes. Lo, you want to develop?
No, that's what I was gonna say. He was younger.
Exactly. Not only is he younger, but he's the host of the party, right? So he's one of those teenagers, right? Graduate from high school. He's actually probably pretty wealthy because he's the one hosting the party. In fact, the way he's talking, you get a sense that he's the star of the party, right? So, and it would have been nice if he had just remained, you know, in his corner, the star of the party, because the moment he begins to speak, the damage begins to happen, right? Suleiman, tell me.
Wasn't it that everything that he said, was it Plato who showed him how he's wrong and kind of like took his speech and like shredded it? He's like, you're wrong here, you're wrong here, you're wrong here, you contradicted yourself here. And it was a child speaking at the end of the day.
Exactly, right? Socrates, not Plato.
Socrates, I'm sorry.
Yes. So let's look at Agathon's blunders, right? So I'm on top of page 29. Everybody there? When he says, I claim, put your hand in the screen if you're there. Okay. So Agathon begins, right? So out of courtesy, right, since he's the host, they invite him to speak, which is a mistake because he's a young guy, and we know from Pausanias that young men have no brains, right? So technically, he should have declined, right? But no, it's okay. I don't want to speak. You guys continue, right? That's what he should have said if he had any sense, but he doesn't because he's a young boy, right? So anyway, so he begins to speak and he makes his first mistake right in the first 3 words. I claim, he says. Already you claim. Who are you to claim anything? You're nobody. You're just a kid. You claim, right? So already you can sense that a certain arrogance, he's a little too comfortable, right? Then he continues, it gets worse. I claim, though all the gods are happy, love, it is proper to say this and does not cause offense, is the happiest. Why? Because the most beautiful and best. And then he begins. He's the most, so love is the most beautiful. Why? Because he is the youngest of gods. Already you should be sensing the problem. Continuing, love naturally hates old age and keeps his distance from it. He always associates with the young and is one of them. Okay, what is going on? There's 2 ways that Agathon is destroying himself right now.
He's contradicting both of the previous speakers with saying that love is young, and because both of them say love is, and love is young, because Pausanias says that love is intelligence, and Aristophanes says love is when you completely build yourself, and that's never through youth, that's through time, experience, and self-knowledge.
Okay, very good, right? So he commits 2 blunders. The second one is that Suleiman has talked about. But there's the first one, which is he's talking to a bunch of older guys, right? Going around saying, love naturally hates old age, right? Who does that? Are you talking to a bunch of old guys saying that love hates old age? What are you trying to do, right? So already he's rude on a superficial level, right? Telling everybody, y'all are old, so it's over for you, right? But then he continues, and philosophically, he's showing his profound immaturity, right? Because we have just finished studying Pausanias, who says that, you ought to seek someone who is older because love is supposed to be an attachment to spiritual things, not physical things. And now he's saying, love is the beauty of the young body. Right? So we are seeing there how deeply buried Agathon still is in the cave, because for him, love is simply the lust of the body, right? You fall in love with youth, right? Or with beauty. And why do you fall in love with beauty? Because beauty is young, right? That's the level of Agathon. All right. So we see here several blunders. And of course, there are also contradictions, which Socrates will point out later, but it's a mess, right? Basically, what Agathon is saying, what he's really doing, right, behind the lines, between the lines, is that he's saying, love is attracted to youth and to beauty. In other words, love is attracted to me, right? Because Agathon is beautiful and young, right? So what really Agathon is saying is that if you want to find love, love me, because I am youth, I am beauty, right? So a complete narcissist, right? A finished narcissist, Agathon, right? He's basically saying, if you want to find love, love me. Now, before we bash Agathon, let's remember that we all have a little Agathon in ourselves, right? All of us want to be loved, right? We come to love with the idea, love is about being loved, right? Look, most of us get in a relationship. Why? Not because we want to love the other person. We want to be loved. A lot of us, right? Most of us, this is the primary reason we get in a relationship. We want to receive love. We want to be the center of attention. We want to be the one to be loved, right? And in that sense, we are not different from Agathon, right? Okay, so here, right, we'll see later how Socrates tears him apart, but already you can see how he stumbles through this speech in a very ungraceful way. Okay, now, here's my question. Remember, I told you. Can you see the common denominator between the 3 speeches? They all share a common attitude towards love. Was anybody able to decipher it?
Is it self-perfection?
Yes, very good, Kanai. Exactly. What unites these 3 guys is that love ultimately is about the self. Let me explain. Pausanias. You should love someone who edifies you. Don't love someone lower than you, because love's supposed to edify what? The self. So make sure you pick someone who gives you self-edification. Aristophanes, Love is finding someone who is like you. Don't get somebody else, somebody like you. So again, love is a reflection of the self. And finally, agathon, he's the climax. Love is about the self. Do you see, right? So let me write these three down, right? So for Pausanias, let me make sure I'm writing to everybody. So for Pausanias, we have love is self-edification, right? There's no mention in Pausanias about edifying the other, right? It's all about make sure you choose wisely because you want the love to build you up, right? And if it doesn't build you up, it's not for you. I mean, I'm sure you heard your parents talking like that, right? Or your friends or your therapist, right? Make sure you choose wisely because you want that love to make you happy. You want that love to bring you wealth, security, stability. You don't want something that brings you down, right? This is Pausanias, right? Love is about ultimately self-edification. Aristophanes, love is a reflection of the self. Again, there's no room for somebody different from the self. That doesn't come into play, right? Make sure you pick someone with whom you have shared natural character, he says, right? This is what you want to attract, someone who has a shared natural character with you, right? No room for anything else. And of course, agathon, right? Agathon, love is, love me. And is turned to the self, right? Right? Love is love me. Okay. So what we're seeing there is a conspicuous absence of any sense of otherness. And that's the problem with those three speeches. And that's what Kanai was responding to a little earlier, which was like, I don't want somebody like me, that's boring, right? You're somebody who is uncomfortable, and rightly so, with this atmosphere of everything has to come back to the self. There is no room, and this is the main issue, right? The main problem with these three philosophers, right, is that there is no room for difference, for otherness, for the other, right? It's not mentioned, right? That was what struck me when I first read this text, right? I was reading it when I first decided to teach it. I hadn't read it before. So I was reading and I was like, oh my gosh, like there, compared to the Song of Songs, right? Huge difference, right? In the Song of Songs, you have this kind of chaotic quest for the other, and the other person is completely different, and they don't necessarily edify you. They challenge you, they trouble you. The woman is in fact sick with love in the Song of Songs. Here on the contrary, love has to be stable. Love has to be edifying. And if it's anything less than stable and edifying, you ought not to be in that relationship. That's what this text is saying. And there's a problem with that, right? So make sure you know the difference, right? The profound difference between the Song of Songs and Plato, right? Song of Songs is entirely, there's several differences, right? Number one, the woman is entirely absorbed in the other, who is completely different from her, right? So there's a definite movement outside of the self in the Song of Songs. That's the first point. Let me write this down, right? So Song of Songs, there's a movement outside of the self versus the Greek text where it's really about the self. Also, the other in the Song of Songs doesn't necessarily comfort, stabilize, edify the self at all, right? The man in the Song of Songs is crazy, right? He's not, edifying her. He's on the contrary, challenging her, causing her pain, making her grow in a way, right? Now, when everything edifies you and is on your side and comforts you, is there room for growth? And that's one of the problems. That's what Kanai also was mentioning, right? There is no room for growth. So second difference, right, in the Song of Songs, you have love is a challenge rather than an asset, right? And finally, you have, it's more difficult, but in the Song of Songs, you have a potential for growth, which sadly you don't have, right? In the Greek text. Everybody's seeing the distinction between the Song of Songs and Plato? You put your hand, right? So let me just review, right? So in the Song of Songs, you have a clear movement outside of the self. In Plato, it's a movement towards the self, right? You want the beloved to be like you, to edify you, to love you. It's going this way. Whereas in the Song of Songs, she is completely expulsed out of herself towards the others. The second thing is that in the Song of Songs, love is a challenge rather than a comfortable asset, right? Here, right, you don't have stability in the Song of Songs. You don't have edification. You don't have sameness. You don't have a familiarity. Everything is unfamiliar. Nothing is stable, right? And yet we see in the Song of Songs a stronger potential for growth, whereas in this Greek text, you pretty much stay the same because there is no one to confront you, right? So does this help you? Can I see where you are situated? Where's my Kanai? Where did Kanai go? Kanai, are you here? Okay. All right.
Sure.
Yes. Okay, good.
Yes, I do understand.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so I was saying that the attractiveness for someone who is different, can that not develop on a later level when you've already established who you are, so you can identify and appreciate differences rather than before you develop that you don't even know who you are, so you just accept anything?
Okay, so yeah, I'm seeing a kind of third path, right? That Kana is saying, because in the Song of Songs, she doesn't know who she is. She becomes who she is through the relationship, right? In the Plato, right, in the three dialogues, they are, and there's no room for growth. And Kana is saying something, it's a blend, right? She's saying, become yourself, that way you can be challenged. You can then have the strength and the stability to be challenged without losing yourself. So that's definitely another way to see it. Yes, absolutely, kind of a synthesis of the two. Very good. Good, all right. Let's take a short break. Like 4 minutes, so until 5:22. Until 5:22, and then we'll come and study Diotima together. So I'm going to stop the recording.